Hey everybody, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for coming to the live show. Today I'm going to show you how you can paint at home with me this gorgeous sunset scene with lavender. You saw the reference photo in the thumbnail, but you're super excited about what we're doing today. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
He is going to be managing a very complicated set of live equipment and robotic cameras. And the reason that he does that is so that if I demo a technique or talk about a color mix, the camera is pointed at what I'm demoing or talking about. And you can really see these things because if you can see it and I can explain it, chances are you can do it at home. And I know that can seem hard to believe that you could be creative or you could paint, but you absolutely can if things are broken down into steps. Most what stops new painters from accomplishing their goals is they just have no idea what steps are involved in creating a painting, how much time they should spend, what colors they should mix. There's just too many unanswered questions. So this show answers all those questions, and that way you get a painting on your wall. Now, we are going to be breaking this down into steps and time stamping and bookmarking those steps. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's so you can find your place again in the video very easily. And the other reason that we do that is it matches the mini book, which is a free downloadable resource that comes out about a week after the video. And it will let you go through everything in a written out format with step pictures and adjustments. So really, really new to painting, that resource might be the difference between frustration and elation. And we want to keep you in elation. So that's why we go to that trouble of writing. They're very involved writing out the mini books because it does make such a huge difference in your experience. Now, today's painting is going to be in acrylic, and I'm starting out on a 16 by 20 surface. I like a 16 by 20 surface because it's a really smaller surface that's like a substantial painting in your home. It's the smallest sizes of the substantial paintings, right? Anything that gets bigger than this, like up into 46, 48, 48, 60, those are really big. You can do those in the future, but this is a great starting place. On the surface, I like to put out the wish and intention that you have a great painting and you're in good health. So I wish that for you. And let's go over the colors. Today's colors are dioxazine purple, quinacridone magenta, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue. And I'm going to say that again just in case you're new to painting. The one here on the left is the phthalo blue, and the one on the right is ultramarine blue. And they are different blues. Cad yellow medium, phthalo green, burnt sienna, Mars black, titanium white. So those are the colors that we have today. Do we have a community today?
We have a community today.
Did we get the text out?
We did get the text out.
Okay.
The gnomes. You know what?
What?
If you would like to get a text,
we'll tell you when we are live or that there's a live chat going on. Whether we're VJing episode or whether it's a live stream like this, we'll tell you when there's an opportunity for you to come chat with your friends live in live chat. And sign up if you want that. Don't sign up if you don't want that because there are many notifications. We work all the time. There are always things going on all the time. The only time you don't hear from us is we had so many things, so much work to do. We ran out of text.
That's right.
That's when you stop. It's the only time we didn't quit working. We just no fun.
But we have a new text messaging system that should be more fun.
And it's going to be global, isn't it?
We're working on
I'm
that.
very excited about. We're going to be able to add Canada. We're going to be able to add Europe. We're going to be able to add, I think, even India and Australia.
India, Australia, New Zealand, most of Europe. We may even have there's like pretty much all over the world. South America, Africa. I mean, like every continent we can get on except like Antarctica. But maybe if I wanted to buy a number for Antarctica, they could technically text and get a notification. But I mean,
are you watching? Seriously, if you're watching from Antarctica, you have to come post a picture in the Facebook group. So we need to know you. So that's really the truth here. This is a global art community. If you're a brand new art student, you don't just get the instruction here, you get the community. And we have, on Facebook, 54,000 of the nicest and most encouraging painters in the universe. It's a great place to come put a first post, a first painting. It's curated and moderated. So, that it's kind of like not all the Wild West up in there, crazy internet stuff happening. We don't condone any of that or support any of that. There's none of it. It's just art and joy and support all the time. And so that's another thing that you get with this. Now, let's get into the first thing that you get with this, which is a step. Step one. All right. I love to teach painting lavender, especially this type of lavender because it's planted in rows. And depending on the position of the photograph, you get to learn 1-point perspective.
Mm.
So you're going to learn a perspective, and it's the easiest, funnest perspective to learn. It's a linear perspective. You don't always get that in landscape, because landscape usually just has atmospheric perspective, which is the principles of how the world looks in the wild, right? But this, because it's a man-made thing, it has some linear perspective, and believe it or not, the keys of painting a road are in here, and we'll talk about that when we go. Now, to do that, we're going to measure out some things on our canvas, and it's going to help make this most interesting new skill super easy. I'm going to pull out a tool called a T-square. And it's just a really big ruler.
And it's, let me guess, it's called a T-square because it's square and shaped like a T.
I'm going to use yellow, but I'm going to make a mark at the 10-inch point. And then I'm going to come here and make a mark at the 8-inch.
All right.
So we're going to go half and half. We're just dividing the canvas in half. If it's a 16 by 20, we're just dividing it in half. Now I'm going to pull this up so I can get my little T-square up here. We had another easel we were using, but I haven't figured out how to use the T-square and the easel at the same time. Still working on that skill.
This is when this was a construct of stunt hands.
You can eyeball this, guys. Especially some of these paintings, like if you're doing a street scene, it's pretty hard to eyeball. You can, but it's pretty hard. But on this, because it's a lavender field, because it's plants, you know, the pressures are low. So I've divided the canvas in half, horizontally and vertically, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? I set this up so that our vanishing point is right here at the halfway and halfway point. Because I thought, why make it hard for everybody? You know? So let's come down here, and we're going to kind of draw some lines. They're about 3 fingers. Let's call it 3 fingers on either side of this line. And we're going to make a little triangle. It's a vanishing triangle. This is our first row of lavender. What? Yep. First row. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's not bad. We might need to make it a little bit bigger, but we're going to come here and come to this corner here. It looks like we might need to make our first row a little bit bigger. So we might make it much bigger. And that's why it's nice to use this. Got to make it angle more. So you can freehand this part. We're going to come in, and that little triangle is going to bisect right there too. When I have that, I can then widen this little line a bit so that what I have going on over here and over here is in perspective.
You could use tape if you needed.
You could use tape. This is plants, so you're not under that much pressure, guys. Pretty low pressure in your world. I'm going to come over here, and we're going to make another little vanishing line of some lavender. We're going to run out of chalk on our Dritz chalk tool. This is just chalkboard chalk. It's actually Taylor's chalk specifically, but it's formulaically very much similar to chalkboard chalk, which means it's clay-based and it has no oils or greases in it, which you don't want.
Gotcha.
You don't want them oils or greases. They come right here. We're going to say here. Give another little line. So these are much wider than you might expect coming down in this space. And that's important to realize, because when you're looking at perspective, especially this kind of extreme perspective, even on roads, right? If you had a road here, it might be this wide with a dividing line going down the center, and that's how you could do, like if you go here and here, right, and there's a dividing line down the center, you could do that road. You could pretty easily add a little vanishing curve to it, and you can do a road that's curving away.
I see.
That's all that goes on in those really cool vanishing road paintings.
Then if you put a 1970 Dodge Charger at the end of that vanishing point, you'd have
you can see I'm just
classic.
making little radials. This also works with square tiles. In art school, we would do all these like checkerboard tiles in 1-point perspective. Oh, I'm going to get such a good grade. We weren't, we thought. My teacher's like, checkerboard? Really? Could you try any less? And we're like, no, we tried really, really hard.
This was all our genius work.
So these little radials just help me understand where I'm going to put in my shadows and my purple lines for creating this perspective. We do the ones that are in detail where we can see a full shape of the lavender, and then these back here are sort of just filled in. So you've just got to be paying attention to how far we've got to do that to get that filled in. That is the first thing that we do on this painting. And once we get that kind of sense of things, and if you don't have chalk, you could use colored pencil as long as it doesn't have wax or grease in it. So a watercolor pencil is really good. You could use kids' chalk from your kids' chalk set. Just grab it from them. Don't use things like a crayon or an oil pastel. You could use a real chalk pastel. What you want is something that will vanish into the painting, you know, and you can use paint. When I'm not teaching, I use paint.
Mm-hmm.
I get like, what? And I use paint. You ready to put up we're going to take a picture?
I'm totally ready to take a picture.
Let's take a picture of this because we're going to call this a step. Because you learned a thing. And now we'll take a picture of it, which I'll probably have to do a digital version of because yellow and white is not that visual. Sometimes in the mini books, you'll see that I do that where I digitally put in something that was chalked in because while the yellow is very nice to paint over, it's not very nice to try to see in a photograph. In the camera, it does not like it. The camera says no. And then we say yes. Oh, how's everybody doing today? Give yourself a big hug. It's such a good day to be here. Take a deep breath. So I learned something. This is probably something maybe you already know, but I did not know this until just recently. Okay, so for all of you guys that know it, you should pat yourself on the back for knowing it. But for those that you don't, this is the honest truth. I learned that stress is fattening. Now, here's why I'm sharing this with you. It's about cortisol levels, which there was a study that proved painting lowers cortisol levels. And if you can lower your cortisol levels, you can improve your overall health and prevent the COVID on one awakening. That's the theory I'm going with anyways, right? I'm painting because, you know, I'm on a health program.
I like less
and
stress.
I'm trying to lower my stress and cortisol. And I could do a lot of physical activity, but I think I'll just paint instead.
You ready for your...
I was up late last night and was very excited to learn that. I was like, Don, painting's good for me.
It has been the conversation this morning.
Huh? And yeah, I had a big conversation with him like, we got to stop stressing. I have to keep eating ice cream and chips, so we got to stop stressing. Okay. Did you put the step up?
I have not.
Put a step up. All right. So in this step, we'll go ahead and define this lower area a little bit first so you can really see it and kind of get a sense of what it is. Dun, dun, dun. I am going to take a bright. This is a number 10 hog bristle bright. If you're a vegan, you could just use a synthetic. I'm using this because it's a nice rough texture and I like that. A lot of brush companies make these brushes. You don't have to get this exact brand of brush. That's not a pressure that you're under. I'm going to take my Mars Black and my Burnt Sienna. Okay, make a pretty dark color. And let's come here and kind of see if we can't sort of paint this line. Now I'm kind of going back and forth. Can you see this little curve?
Uh-huh.
This is going to help me create a little space between my lavender rows. I don't have to do it as big up here, but it's nice to have. You see what I mean about it being much bigger than you think.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. You've planted a row of lavender. Don't you feel special?
Yes.
You should. You should definitely feel special. And again, I'm just making sure. This is the easiest stage. Now, If you're very new to painting, you may really be judging every little brush stroke you make and every move you make. I'm just kind of wiggling these down. But trust me, you really do not need to do that. Paintings come together in a series of layers and techniques. So a lot of times they have a kind of crazy look about them until you've been at it for a second. Building up layers, I'm going to come over here to the side.
Okay.
I'm just making a nice little soft diffuse mark. Never been so easy to plant rows of lavender.
Yeah.
And you can kind of already see those rows of flowers being taken away, going away from you.
Yeah.
If I need a little water on my brush, I can put a little on. You want to be careful when you paint with hog bristles. And the only reason you want to be careful when painting with hog bristles is that they can hold some more water than you might expect. And I think we'll have one pretty significantly maybe line to this one. But after that, it's going to get kind of less defined, and we'll do that with loose brushwork. Now the row next to this one, it's still pretty defined. Over here, because the light source is over here, some of these rows are a little defined further into the distance, and that's because of atmospheric perspective, the traditional landscape kind. What that basically says is the further you are from the light source, the warmth of the sun, the more kind of soft, diminished, less in detail that you might be, less saturated in color you might be. But these guys over here, they're in the full golden rays. So we might see a few more of them disappearing into the vanishing point, which is here. See another one kind of doing that. Come back. Sometimes it helps to come back from the center line. And you're going to be putting like purple and stuff here. So again, you don't have to be too intense with yourself. As it gets closer to the horizon, these rows, they tend to get a little closer together.
Oh,
yeah. I think they kind of stop being really noticeable around here, so I'm not going to worry much past this point. We have this and that.
We have this and that.
This and that, and then we can just do something pretty easy.
Is that a row of flowers?
We're going to take, we're going to put some purple on. I'm going to purple everything over here to the right, down to my little line. Just the first row of purple. It's a nice first kind of underpainting color. I do pay attention a little to the directionality of my perspective because it's helpful. This is called blocking in.
Is that underpainting phase?
Yeah, we're just blocking in and underpainting where objects are.
Now, this has a couple of importance, right? One, like sometimes your canvas needs to have a coat of paint on it in order for it to like properly give you the effect you want, right?
I find in general, even into the expensive canvases, this is a truth I found in my years of painting. You get the best results from your paint when it has layer of paint on it.
Right.
Like a lot of times people will like, well, do I have to gesso if I want to paint over an old painting? And if you haven't varnished and you haven't done anything but put acrylic paint on, you might just be able to have a better result just painting acrylic over the original painting if it didn't visually mess you up. The reason as an artist that I might gesso it is to create a visually clear field with a nice surface prep of grit.
Oh.
But that's not because there's some necessity for that other than my convenience.
It's true.
Yeah, because in acrylic sticks to acrylic really well.
Now the other thing is in acrylic, the paintings are constructed in layers. And they require those layers of color to create those effects, don't they?
Yeah. Well, we can do alla prima painting in acrylic, and we sometimes do, but in general, we do layered painting. I mean, you can do immediate stuff, you know, pores and different things that are single layered. But in general,
It lends itself this way.
it really does. It
Now,
likes it.
this is a very dark purple.
It is. Doc's purple is a very dark color. You can mix purples and you can mix a hue that's kind of like Doc's. But the thing you've got to remember about when you create a hue is not a pigment. It is a color that looks like a pigment. It won't mix like the pigment at all. So if you're creating a hue because there's a field of area that looks like a Doc's purple to you, do that. But if a painting calls for Doc's purple, don't try to do it from a hue. I'm going to put that in my stuff beginners need to know painting things, because you wouldn't know that. It would seem to you that all these colors were mixed from primaries and therefore were interchangeable, and they are not. That's light theory. And this is pigment, and they have some similar properties, but they are more different than you'd think.
Now, this being so dark, that's one of the cool things about the purple is that it becomes that deep, deep background color without being black.
Yeah, and we'll really read in the painting when we build up the purple will seem more lavender than lavender. I've actually been to lavender fields in France, and they'll tell you right now, like, whatever lavender you think you're growing, they love to tell you, especially at the perfumeries, that your lavender isn't the right lavender. It's the stuff used for floor cleaner. It's really extraordinary experience. But I did learn, and it's a lovely tour, and the fields are very pretty. You know, and I bought like all the lavender water and lavender perfume from the real French lavender, which they explain to you is real and not for floor cleaner. And also a bunch of reasons why it can't be grown anywhere else in the world. I think, though, gardeners are cleverer than that. And I think that they have. Personally, I don't know it, but I believe it to be true. You can see we're just creating that purple layer. I'm going to just use up my purple here. Nice distant horizon. And we've got our perspective in, our 1-point perspective. Nice layer of color paint. Whatever you need, you know? Okay. I think we can call that a step. We did a lot. Let's rinse out our brush really, really well. And for the sky, let's change out our water. Fresh water. Dirty water over here. All right. Shall we take a picture, sir?
I think so. That turned out pretty nice.
I'm happy with it. And now we get to do the sky, which is the really yummy fun part. I have a lot of videos on how to do clouds. I plan to make some more tip videos on how to do clouds. I don't think there's ever enough ways to explain clouds or teach clouds. I always look at different methodologies or new ways of explaining it because I recognize that we all learn differently. And, you can try it. We all learn differently. We all have a different way of seeing the world and understanding the world. So I do try to vary how I explain it. There is a playlist about how to plant clouds, and it covers everything from those first concepts of like 3 colors, very beginner kind of techniques, all the way into what is the thinking. I have one that's how I paint clouds, and it has 4 pictures of clouds. And that just covers the thinking of how I see clouds, and as an artist, I approach painting them and the things that I've got to think of when I'm creating them. So I have all that range. Please take advantage of the playlist. It does make a huge difference. If you're very new to painting, just know that everybody has a thing with clouds. And it's okay if you do too. You're just very, very, very normal. And you're totally fine.
So.
Very, very, very normal.
We should.
Step it.
We should step it.
Step it, because we're going to put some sky in. Lavender sunset sky. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. Everyone's, I think, really enjoying this one. I'm enjoying this one for sure.
This is a lovely one. It's going to be a great one on your wall. You're going to really love the result. I've taught lavender a few times. I have a lavender playlist if you thought this was fun. If you're like, this is very successful. I have a lot of lavender I've painted over the year.
You've painted
There's like maybe
lavender.
20 videos. That's a subject I've taught before. You can feel pretty good that I'm going to be able to help you get through this painting today based on that. The sky. So our sky goes from a yellow to a blue, and it's got a nice range of pink and purple clouds through here. Couple of good things about that. When you go from a yellow to blue sky, a lot of people really struggle with the green stage. They really feel like their sky goes green. We have some videos on how to prevent the green. I'm going to do a tip on it. A lot of it is just creating mixes that go through and we're going to blend up. I'm going to be using some tools, some blending tools, and I'm going to tell you what everything is. All right, let's begin. I'm going to start actually with a mop. This is a 1-inch oval mop. This particular one is called an ultimate varnish brush. That was their decision. But what it actually is a 1-inch oval mop in synthetic. I don't use goat, which is this, very similar brush. The reasons I don't use goat are it breaks down from acrylic paint. Acrylic paint's pH is damaging to the brush. The little sheds are always happening, and it holds too much water. That's all it is. That's all it is. I'm going to begin by loading my brush with white. Quite a lot of white, actually. And I'm going to paint this lower part of the canvas with white.
Get that.
It's white on white. Not that exciting visually, I know.
But it's important because you can tell that it creates just that little bit of...
Now I'm going to add just a smidge of yellow to this brush and start to brush out some yellow low here to the horizon line. Maybe a little more. And I'm brushing it in. The white helps me keep it from getting out of control. That's pretty good. That's very lovely. I'm going to keep getting some white onto my brush. Now I'm going to get a little bit of phthalo blue. I have a bit of a give here in my white to come down into the yellow. How am I not getting green? Because I'm not bringing the blue into the yellow and intermixing that green right now. I'm also using a very light color of blue to garner this transition. And another thing that's nice is I have a bit of an aqua up in the sky. And come here lightly with the brush and kind of create that transition. Rinse out. But when you rinse out, be sure you've got a towel nearby because this brush is also quite wet. So what I do is I wring out my brush with the towel. Get my brush damply wet again. I'll go ahead and blend my watercolor wishes into the sky. Add maybe a little more blue. This is Ready Player Layer 1. And it is a layer 1. It is the first layer, and it is the layer by which we have success in a lot of the other stuff that's happening. Because the reason it gives us success, and if I have to blend or adjust anything, like I'll take another, this is a 1-inch oval mop by Rowan Langnickel. I can come here with a dry brush and kind of also soften this out a bit. This only works one time while the brush is dry, so I keep a grip of these around. Some people like to have makeup brushes. If they have success with that, I'm okay with that. I've got to remember I've got a nice bank of clouds here, so all I'm trying to do is make sure that what I don't have, brush in, I'm going to get a little white in here, is a little green transition, which I haven't got. You can see it's just going very nicely. If I want to get a little of my ultramarine blue into my phthalo blue, I can kind of come in and also deepen this a bit. Where I want to get softer blends, I barely touch the brush to the surface, right? I'm
Mhm.
just kissing it across. It's a very gentle touch. It's like tickling the surface of the canvas. I used to, early in the days, I used to talk about wet cat pressure, like how gently would you pet a wet, angry cat? That's the amount of gentle you need to apply here. And that worked for a while, but a lot of people were like, I've never had a cat. I don't know how cats are when they're wet.
I'm allergic to cats.
He's allergic to cats. So we were like, okay, it's not a universal explanation. But if you own a cat, that's the exact amount of pressure that you want to be using is angry cat. You have to pet it. You have to. You have no choice. How gentle. How okay. I'm fine. This is a step. It can be dried. I'll dry it here.
You say
I
that.
say I only paint what I want to.
Tell you what, you talk to
Don't
them,
color
I'll
hard
dry it.
enough.
How about
Okay.
that?
Okay.
You talk to them.
I'll
and
talk
I'll
to
do
you
the
guys and he'll dry it. And that way I don't sing. Such a wonderful day, is it not? I love. I miss my coffee. He's taking my coffee, so I'll sip my water in my sloth mug. Christmas sloth mug. Makes me very happy. Keep your drinking water away from your paint water. You might want to keep your coffee away from your paint water because it's really easy. We've all done it. Put our brush in our drink cup. Coffee, tea, wine, water, doesn't really matter. At some point, one of your brushes will find a cup. How did you guys like doing the black lab yesterday? Wasn't that fun? That was pretty fun. And you should know right after this video, I'm going to go answer the questions that you asked in my YouTube story. So if you guys don't know, YouTube has stories now like Instagram or Facebook, which are the short little videos, except YouTube lets me do a video response so I can answer your questions in 15 seconds of video. So however good a 15-second answer is, I'm going to give it. We have about a few questions in this latest run. I'm trying to update them on Saturdays. So if you're wanting to ask a question, it's like Saturdays is when it renews. It like ages out every 7 days, as I learned. And Saturday is when it renews. And I can answer that question. I'm going to go immediately after this live and sit down in my question answering chair and answer the questions of my students, which is actually my very favorite thing to do. I love to answer your questions. So please do, if you have one, come by and ask. Even professional questions. I like don't teach professional stuff, but I could because I really know a lot about it.
You know.
I forgot more about being in the art business than
it's almost like it was the 1920s again. You're sitting in the parlor entertaining guests, only virtually this time.
Yeah, and I'm a little. I don't really have that Gatsby roll. He's got like that really blingy roll.
Oh no,
and this is more like, oh, we survived. That's so good. Let's sip our coffee.
We've got this room called a parlor.
We do have a parlor,
but I mean,
we only have it because your mom's here and she made a parlor.
And otherwise,
it's really lovely though.
It is very lovely.
I just want you to know, it is not a credit to me. I appreciate the compliments. It's not a credit to me. The Betsy Johnson tree, all of that is not a credit to me. That is a credit to your mother.
I would be storing paintings in there probably.
Yeah, she does seem to feel like we should have some areas of the house to live in.
Okay, so we teach stuff.
Okay, let's put up a step.
You think that one like that?
Yeah. Step 4. So we're gonna continue on doing more of what we just did there, but now we're gonna add some pop and zhuzh and exciting, and I'm gonna show you a cool tool to help you get some glazing and blending over what you already have.
Cool tool.
Okay. In acrylic, there's a really cool thing called Gloss Glazing Liquid by Golden. No other company makes this way. I think the closest I've seen is something that Deco did for one-stroke painting. Maybe it was Plaid. Somebody did something for one-stroke painting. But even that is different. This is the jam. You can get it online. You can get it in the art store. If you can get it, I highly recommend it. It's a blending medium that glazes. You can get glazing mediums and you can get blending mediums, but it's tough to get a blending medium that glazes. So that was Golden's genius. And they are wonderful for doing it. I'm going to rinse out my brush a little bit. A lot. Because it has a lot of pigment in it. Dry it out a lot. And I think I'll have to put my water to the side here and get a fresh, it's going to be one of those classes. Fresh cup, fresh cup, fresh cup of water.
We like those fresh cups of water.
Freshest, the freshest. So I dry my brush out. Yay! Gonna come over here. I want it drier than that. You don't want the brush to have really much water in it when you get into the glazing medium. So see, I'm loading it with glazing medium and a little bit of white. That's nice. A little glaze, 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 and a little bit of yellow. Glaze, glaze, glaze. And just brush that in. It's a very light pressure. I'm brushing back and forth. Nice big soft brush. If you have a big soft fan or soft flat brush, if you just want the bristles to be kind of soft, that would be the secret spice that you're looking for. Soft bristles. Make sure they're soft. And I'm using the glazing medium, and so this is going to keep everything from drying on me so fast, which is very nice. Now I can do some complicated little shadings and blendings and sky effects where I feel like I want to. Look at that go. Isn't that nice?
It is.
And again, we're not getting the green, which is what we're trying to avoid in a sky like this. Now I can come in and get a little of my pink and my yellow. Oh, you know what?
No.
Totally forgot a color.
Did you?
I feel like I want cad red in this palette, and I'll make sure it's in the description. And it'll be in the mini book, and I apologize. That's on me.
That's okay.
That is on me. Sometimes you get putting the palette out. So let's go over the palette again. It's quinacridone magenta, cad red, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, cad yellow, phthalo green, burnt sienna, Mars black, dioxazine purple, and titanium white with a little bit of glazing medium. Things to know. I've got a little bit of this sort of orangey peach, and I'm going to put it over here to the right. Light pressure, let it be a little streaky, a little atmospheric. See how that creates that wonderful atmosphere?
Mm-hmm.
As if something amazing has happened there.
This is definitely where
Woo!
The layering is.
Like to rinse out. Really helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Layering makes a big difference. And building up a glaze or color base, you can, for the camera, make things look really good. But that doesn't necessarily translate to a really good painting at home.
Gotcha.
I'm going to mix my ultramarine blue and my phthalo blue into a half and half mix together. And I'm going to deepen my sky up here. So I'm doing that?
I do.
I'm building it up. Building it up. Put a brush down. I'm going to lighten my pressure. Lighten it, lighten it, lighten it. Now I've got some depth.
Yeah.
Come back into my light color, my blue. Really, this is the first time I've even added even a drop of water to anything. I'm going to brush this here. Creating a little nice cloud density. If I've got to put more glazing medium out, hit it now. Good time to get it. I love my glazing. If you don't have it, you can use water and just do a second layer.
Okay.
So that's an important thing to know. It does make things easier, but if you don't have it, you can just add a second layer and do the water.
Cindy was asking, what does mixing the two blues do? Does it cancel the green?
It cancels out the green and creates a very neutral blue, and it means I don't have to go in and get a cerulean or, a cobalt or a different blue for my little pack of blues.
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, yeah, no, it's very good. It definitely, absolutely softens and neutralizes some of that green to the sky and gives you more of that soft blue that we sometimes see. Just kind of blending that here. Creating some drama. Sometimes I've got to rinse out, really dry off. And create a little half bridge here. And we know we're going to have clouds through here. So these little transitions, they make some cool drama.
Yeah.
Some cool excitement. I think the only thing I might want to add is a little yellow to the far left. So I'll do that over here. I'll lean to the right and go left over there. I am wiping out my brush. So sometimes you'll off camera, I have a little towel, and what I'm doing is wiping out the excess paint to my brush to control my pigment load. All right. That's it. That's a very perfect underbase. It does need to dry. One of the things that you'll notice is with glazing medium, it does take a little longer with a hairdryer to dry. I can talk to them, or you can dry, or whichever you want to do.
I'll talk. You talk, I dry.
Okay.
Because they're not here to hear me.
I mean, I think some of them are. You're pretty funny. He's pretty funny. I think he should be on camera more. And he's like, no, I have stage fright. He does not have a face for radio. And he doesn't have a voice for radio, though, I think, my opinion. So in this blending process, know that blending takes a minute to learn. There are a lot of ways to do it. If one way is challenging for you, look for one of the many, many alternate ways to achieve the same effect. In painting, there's never just one technique that gets you there. There's never just one way. Even in one-stroke painting, I've been watching a bunch of the toll painting videos, which is just very advanced one-stroke. And wow, there's a lot of ways to get a different effect or technique done. So be imaginative, be creative, do research. I've got several videos on how to blend, but I have one how to blend acrylic like oil, so you can see some introductions. In each video, I might teach a different blending method. I might teach a sponge method or a mist method, lots of different methods, because there's never one way to get there. No, it's still wet. I'll have to keep drying. No, I can dry it. Like I said, it takes a long time to dry, and you're probably going to have to hit it with some heat, babe. Okay. He hasn't ever had to dry a glazed painting, and so it's a surprising amount of time to dry. Shocking amount of time to dry. And that's the point of that medium, is the medium slows down the drying time of paint. If you're wondering what the art term is for that, it's called open. So when a paint is open, it means it's still available to blend, and when it's closed, it means it's dry. And you're trying to slow down the drying time of the paint. There are products that are made for just doing that. The issue with them is, and the reason I don't always recommend them to beginners is if you don't get the ratios just right, you can actually make it where your painting doesn't dry. And as a beginner, this is the time you're supposed to experiment and make mistakes, but you don't necessarily want to make that kind of mistake because you wouldn't know what it was, and it could be very, very frustrating and very, very difficult. I love how John's like, I'm talking to no one today. So normally we do recommend that people don't use a lot of heat in the drying process, and that's because acrylic is very sensitive to heat. It can, in some less expensive paints, even create a really deep color shift or accelerated color shift. Every acrylic paint has some color shift, and in acrylic, the color shift is darker. So if you paint watercolors with me, we'll talk a lot about the color shift is lighter. If you paint acrylics with me, the color shift is darker. I don't know if oils have a color shift. I'm moderately versed in oil. Okay. Yeah, a little more. So I'm asking to keep drying because to do the clouds, I need a stable surface that won't underbind when I paint over it. that's the issue of using glazing mediums in the show, is that we create a scenario where we've got to stop and really dry that level or that layer. It's good for you to understand that's what we're doing now. You know, the whole reason that these are real time is so you can see those different things. Though we're constantly trying to think of different ways to do this, what we do here, make it more fun and more enjoyable. I really appreciate all the support for the different types of videos that we're making. I really love how you guys have been using the community tab here on YouTube so that we can do polls and first looks. It's been actually a surprisingly refreshing thing. This Wednesday, we will be doing a watercolor. We're going to be doing a very easy little trees over on the watercolor channel, which is how to paint watercolor live with the Art Sherpa, a whole different channel. Mostly that's about separating up the content, because people sometimes think you quit painting one thing if they see a notification for another video. So we're like, let's just make them separate. My mom is going to be on Monday night. Ginger Cook Live is on Monday night, and she's a hoot and a half. It's a different vibe. It's a late night vibe for sure. Lost glazing. Yay! I did a twirl. Oh, that's better. All right. So now that's real dry. And the reason I wanted it to be dry is so when I do this cloud technique, I don't have the painting that I did underneath underbind or lift into the technique. So we can do a step if we want to do a step.
We can.
Because I talked to everybody a long, long time about just everything.
Let's see here. I want to make sure that I'm on the right step, which
Next
I
conversation
think is
we're going to talk about
this step.
the big arc quest. Okay. Step 5, Lavender Sunset. So we have wonderful little clouds here, and I'm going to get out one of my favorite little cloud style brushes. So this is a round number 12, and it's a hog brush made from hog or boar bristles, and they are chunking hog interlock. Those are the words you have to think of. Chunking, and interlock. And if you see those words in a brush, it's probably going to be pretty similar to what this one is. So even if you have trouble finding this exact brush, no worries. No concern. In any way, you're good. I lost a cap.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I just like dropped the cap somewhere.
That's okay.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. Put a little more white out so I don't have any trouble. I'm going to do some distant clouds. The sun is low and behind the clouds, and what that creates is a lot of color, perspective, and shadow. Very few of the clouds will even be in that white space that we think of. When you think of clouds, you're thinking of water particles, and those water particles are refracting light all around, all different kinds of places, and that creates that sort of white effect. But when they're down low like this with the sun, you get a different refraction. You start to see really significant colors.
Wait, it's not. They're not made of cotton candy?
You know, as far as I know, not as much. So I'm going to take my white and a little of my pink and a lot of my white.
That's what I always think of.
And I'm going to come here, and I'm on the toe of the brush. You can see the load there. I don't want the brush to be wet. I want it to be loaded with paint. It's not a full dry brush, but you don't want it to be soaking. And that's the thing you're trying to balance out as you're painting. What I'm doing here are little fluffy, weird shapes of clouds.
Oh, that's a good question. How many glazes can you use in one spot? How many times can you glaze?
Okay, you guys remember that 100 layer challenge?
Vaguely.
I have paintings that have more than 100 layers on them. You can glaze
for sure. That's
an infinite number of times as long as it's cured underneath. Sometimes if paint builds up real thick, it can take 3 weeks to cure. This is acrylic, not oils. Oils is a completely different animal. So yeah, infinitely. I was gonna do the 100 layer challenge. I'm like, but that's like my backboard that I'm painting like 200. It's not even. It's just a thing that paint does. I gotta get better on the trends though, because I could have been like, let's paint a painting 100 times. I would have totally I'm like, how will it work out? I would have totally known, but I could have been like, how will it work out? And that would have been a good video. But I always forget to do those. I had a little yellow in my white here.
Now this is about using that coarse brush and...
Yeah, and it's kind of on the toe, and I'm working it from the half belly to the little point here.
Okay.
And I'm letting these shapes dance out. Get a little pink, a little yellow on there. I like to build these out. Remember, in your reference photos, unless there was a sky that was posted the other day on Twitter that went viral that was like honestly the best sky I've ever seen, like ever in my life, of the whole life being alive on the planet, best clouds I've ever seen. Okay, those I would have painted exactly as they were photographed, but all other clouds are just a suggestion. And you should still like paint what makes a better composition, you know? And we're gonna just come here and think about design and process and what will feel like sky when we're done. And we're painting the distant little floofers. That's what you got to do, paint the distant little floofers. I can come a few places here and kind of add some of these more yellow ones. They might peek out behind purple. What am I trying to do? I'm creating really irregular shapes that build up.
Gotcha.
It's hard to get your regular cloud on. It can take a minute to figure out, you know, who you are in relationship to the clouds. And also, you have a lot of cloud drama in your soul you don't know about till you start to paint them.
Like trees.
You think you're cloud neutral. Here's what it is. Your whole life you go around thinking, I'm cloud neutral. Like I like them, I can take them or leave them. It's all cool. You know, I'm happy when I see a pretty set or a rainbow, but you don't think of yourself as being highly cloud opinionated until you take up painting. And then you realize you have very strong feelings on what looks like a great cloud and what does not look like a great cloud. And I'm always sort of tickled to see students like get into that space because like they come in and they're like, first painting, they're like, ah, clouds. Coming out of it, they're like, clouds? Clouds? Clouds.
I always think it's funny.
Clouds.
Trees are funny because they start out with lollipops and then they get to the fork where like, wait a minute, I keep making 3 forks. I'm like,
forks. There's just,
it's like, there's
if you're
things.
in this, you're not alone is our point.
Yes, this is a road well traveled, and we have seen some people walk it a few times. Happy to point you along the way.
Happy to. And it's very normal, you know? It's very normal. I'm going to add a little white to my pink. These clouds on these outer reaches, I'm going to take a little more into the pink a few places. I can take a little of my quinacridone magenta and my cad red and get some incredible corals as well. Get a little white on here and it can always come and wipe off on the towel and just make sure that we've got personality in some of these. Fun bit. A little touch at the first. I'm going to come forward, John.
Okay.
Sometimes I gotta come forward and really look at something head on. And just because they're a distant little wispy cloud doesn't mean that they don't have, that's some little wisp, that they don't have a lot happening in their little cloud life. Many clouds are almost alive. I'm adding white to, here's some things to think about. Light source is here. So the clouds are going to have some bright highlights in them kind of at that face the sun area. Gonna happen. There's just no way to get around that. I'm adding a little yellow to even kind of accentuate that. And again, when you're referencing something, you're looking at it as a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
You are not in a contract with the reference that has legal ramifications if you deviate. But take the time. Sometimes I find that tapping the brush up and down helps make that like a very irregular soft shape. You can say just tap it up and down.
Yeah.
Helps me make that soft shape. This is a lot of cloud on this painting. All right. I feel like that's a good distant cloud. Whenever you get those in, it really helps you get some good results in your overall painting. Let's call that a step, and we'll come back and put in another cloud layer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Layers, layers,
We can
layers. Do that. Whew. Sip my water.
Sip the water in your sloth
Water
cup.
sloth says, be hydrated. Now, if you're at home and you've been sitting for a minute, because sometimes you guys take 2 to 3 times in following the tutorial as I do in making the tutorial. So, it was my fault. Sometimes you guys spend 2 to 3 times in following the tutorial as I do making the tutorial. No. And no need to dry here because we're going to keep layering up, so it's okay if it's a little bit wet. Make sure that you stand up and you move your body and you move around gently and carefully so you're not stuck in one position for more than 30, 40 minutes at a shot. You want to be really careful with that because it's really easy to build up these weird stress injuries. If you just don't listen to your body and pay attention, and the problem is, okay, yeah, you do it. It's better. You put it down. Okay. All right. So, yeah, you do that from now on. Okay. So we're going to come in here. John's going to put up another step, and we're going to add some more drama to our cloud. Are you ready for your dramatic clouds? They're very dramatic. Step 6, more drama clouds. I'm going to keep on with this brush.
Which brush?
The round, number 12, hog round.
Okay.
And look, I have this brush in many different lines. You know what I mean? So this brush exists for me in many, many, many carnations, and I have it's a little too, this one's a little too pointed for the effect, which is why I don't use the synthetic. That's why.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to take a little of my ultramarine blue and my dark purple. And come here at the corner, and we're going to create a little irregular shape of cloud. Little wiggles, little random wanders. Ultramarine blue, little darks purple, and it's okay if a little white gets into it. It really is. Using that mid belly to the toe of the brush to create the random interesting shapes that are clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have to add like some white highlights and stuff to the edges, but we need to find the shape of the clouds first. Sometimes you'll see me wipe my brush off. Okay, you just touch it, and maybe it's a little bit of a suffer here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all right.
When you start painting clouds, do you know where you're going to end up?
Yes,
Yeah.
but only because I've done it a really long time. And so I have sort of an expectation that I have learned to develop through that
Mm.
experience. But when I was new to it, no. It felt like skies were just happening to me. I think when I was very new to painting, probably for a long time. And then it wasn't until I was really studying landscape consistently that I think I even really had any sense of it.
Hmm.
So if you feel like kind of like I don't even know where it's going, that's okay. Now I can come into my magenta here,
Mm-hmm.
little diox, little magenta, and even a little white. Just wiggle this brush around.
I love watching the clouds just come to be. I tend to get a little mesmerized by it. Like, ooh, the clouds.
It's nice, right?
It really is. It's um hypnotic.
And it should be, as it should be. It should be a little hypnotic. Now, interestingly enough, Doc's purple and Cad red do mix together, and you can get the magenta in there, and you get some really interesting kind of hard to see colors in the clouds that absolutely do happen. And they'll happen more over here where the sun is focused. I'll rinse out about this stage here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just creating shapes, right? That's what I'm trying to build is shapes, shapes, and more shapes. I'm going to take my pink and a lot of white. Get into my yellow if I need to.
Yeah. I love the the darkness that contrasts against the top of the clouds. How they
Yes.
peek out.
Little light catches in. Mm.
Shannon. She says, sell everything you own and move to Hawaii. It's beyond liberating and very expensive, but liberating.
I would love to.
3 kids. Just,
Crickets.
I guess we could just throw them out on the beach and then come back at dark and pick them up. Tell them we gotta go make some YouTube videos. Babysit themselves.
Oh, I could be like totally raw Christina. She did that basic thing. She really did, though.
Maybe,
I'm
I
going to
like
take a little white and my yellow here.
Hawaii could be cool, but, what about a, like, more northern cold island like Ireland? That could be another island we could visit. And there's a very southern island. It's more of a continent that's kind of large. That's an island that I'd like to visit. Australia.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
And then there's New Zealand, which is we found out its own continent. New Zealandia. It's not it's Old Zealandia, where the Zealanders come from. Not the Zoolanders. Different group of people. I think they share some humor, possibly, but you have to take that on a Zealander by Zoolander basis.
I don't know. I've only watched the Gloaming, so that's like my whole thing. Like my whole thing is like top of the lake of the Gloaming, and I'm not sure that that's the information that I needed.
Well, one might say that Hobbit humor has a basis in
And there was a superhero
New
one I watched that was sort of interesting. His name is escaping me right now. Something man. Not really
And there's France, which is not an island.
A little more purple sometimes.
It's right in the middle of where everybody invades.
Gosh, everybody does like to crash France.
They got good bread, cheese, and they're right in the middle of Europe.
Here's my advice to those that wish to crash France: don't. They don't like it.
They do not.
They do not. You as a guest, yes, but no invasions. It's not their favorite, and they do not think fondly back on it.
South of France is littered with little walls. And it was like, and this war was when we built this wall, and then this war we built this wall, and now we just farm around them because they're irritating old walls.
And we're like, aren't they pretty?
But you can understand why everyone goes to France. If you're in Europe, you're like, well, what's the first country we want? We want France because they've got, well, south of France. And that's a really good place to be.
It's just awesome.
So you kind of understand it.
I don't.
You know.
But I stayed there a long time, so I think I got that like French feeling on it. So I'm just building up this bank of clouds. You can see we're just creating this mess. And it's easy to just have it stop, take shape. You've got to get through the layers for it to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Now over here, it's more of a lavender. And one good way to get lavender when we wouldn't normally get it is we can take ultramarine and quinacridone, and they make a softer purple than diox will make.
That super pertinent information that was time sensitive that you asked your kids to give you?
Just now?
Just now, like an hour late. I know.
Oh, good times. Good times, good times.
Families.
But yeah, I'm just the lavender kind of comes out here. Anytime I want to get into the docks, I can come right into it. And I'm going to come back and put some deeper shadows on a few clouds.
Deeper shadows?
Yeah.
Shows you how thick the cloud is because it's blocking out the light.
Exactly. The clouds come together in sort of a totality, right? It's not one individual mark or shape that gets your clouds. It's
the cumulus
nimbus of them.
That's right.
Okay
to pun it up.
Make some that have just a little more robustness.
Because that's a word.
Robustness is a word, isn't it?
Yes, probably. I'm just.
I feel like it is. If it isn't, I'm very misinformed.
Probably. It is. I'm just hassling you.
I'm coming underneath these clouds and kind of adding a little bit of a shadow here.
I think what it is the irony of robustness in a cloud. Until you get up there and it's 170 miles an hour wind, and you're like, whoa! Jet stream.
I'm going to stand back and look at it again. So we're just building up these cloud layers.
You are. I'm kind of
I'm going
heckling
to
my
call
wife
this a
mildly.
step because that's a lot to do. And I want to get a picture of where this is at so we can come back and finish up the sky.
That seems reasonable.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. Don's going to do it. Things to think about for the future. So as we go forward, we're going to be warming up the areas of the sky that are closest to the sun, adding in our oranges and things that pop and make this a really dramatic sunset. The more time you spend in the sky just playing with the layers, often it can result in better outcomes. But remember, that's if you have a technique set and a plan set to continue fiddling. If you're very unfamiliar with clouds, sometimes spending too much time in it can overwork it. And what I want you to do is be like, if you're new into this, be very forgiving of yourself, use the mini book, and recognize that painting is a journey and each painting leads to better outcomes in future painting. So if you have a dream painting in your heart, and today is painting number one, right? First, keep painting number one. No matter how you feel about it, you're going to love it in a year from now. And then know that painting number one is an investment in painting 100. And sometimes our dream painting happens around painting 100.
Mm-hmm.
So just know painting number one is that first really important step to a long journey that's joyful and beautiful and has lots of scenic overlooks, which is art.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you never stop learning in it. There's always something new to take in.
No. You're on a step here, aren't you?
I'm on a step.
What do you know what step it is?
No.
I do.
Okay, good. Step. Okay. So I'm halfway through. All right. I'm going to take a little of my Doc's Purple over to my quinacridone, and I'm going to mix these together. Maybe a little white into that. Playing with those ranges. Rinse out. A little of our quinacridone and our cad red together is always really enjoyable. Make sure you don't have a lot of water in the brush.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be good to have some white into the mix. A little bit of white onto the mix and get into these little coral bits as we head out. Makes little fluffy, strange little corals.
Mm. Magenta E.
Yeah, it's the quin and the cad red together create a really unusual kind of color combo. just finding little highlight, little bits to exaggerate.
Mm.
Okay, allowing that to have a minute. We're building it up. Fun to do.
Mm.
Just the constructs of the beginning. I can come over here and take a little bit of my cad yellow and my cad red.
This is where you really have to make sure that you have those layers dry below. Otherwise, you'll drag that yellow in, huh?
Yeah. And that's why, we think about some of those things as we're going forward.
Hmm.
Get a little more yellow here and really orange that up. Get some of this cad red, cad yellow, maybe even a little white into it. Add a little more cad red as we go. We're just
Mm-hmm. So quiet when you get into the clouds.
I get into the clouds and I get to
I'm,
thinking,
I
right?
know, and I'm all watching the clouds, and I don't know if should I say something about the clouds, or do you, or are you just about to say something so epically cloudy that I wouldn't see it coming?
I think at some point your head has to be in the clouds to paint clouds.
That could be.
You have to be in that mental space. What am I doing? I'm adding a little drama to the bottom of the clouds.
Have to check your mic batteries if I'm not careful.
Yeah?
Get all quiet.
Oh, because yesterday. No, it could be, right? Like that is a thing that can happen. I have just rinsed out and dried off. I'm still in my same brush. Get a little yellow here, a little white here. This just creates a little underlining.
Mm-hmm.
I very much like it. Paint and you start to find your own way through the sky. Every sky having its own little personality, depth, or enjoyment. almost a glaze when I come in and put a little glow.
Yeah. Almost.
Yeah, it's a little transparent, but it's very dramatic.
It's very dramatic. I like the sky.
I like the sky too. Get a lot more white and a little yellow. And just to
You're just dancing along there lightly. Now, you
I'm
talk about
creating a little bit of light coming up from the sun, and that's what I'm trying to make here, just a little bit of light coming up from the sun.
and non-repetitious patterning.
Non-repetitious pattern. You're dancing the brush around. The brush is dancing. And you're just finding that spot where its dance is meaningful. You make better than, in general, what you're given, because you can put colors and shapes and thoughts and arrangements that maybe you weren't necessarily given in nature, but you're very much enjoying right now. A little bit of the cad red and magenta can come through here, and just really beautiful. It's interesting when the sun is off center from the vanishing point.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting when we go to paint that. I'm going to stand back and look at it. I feel like I'm getting into a space where I rather am liking.
I like it.
Liking what I see. Rinse out.
Little hot spot.
That's really going to
cool.
be where that's at. There you go. That's a step.
Oh.
That's a sky. I very much enjoy to paint with you on a weekend. Look
It's
at that
very
little
nice.
Sky. Just a nice little sky. Happy little sky. Now we get to go in and plant the flowers, which is wonderful. Who doesn't? It doesn't need to be dried. Who doesn't like to plant the flowers? But you can if you want to. You can if you want to. But it doesn't require the next layer. I mean, other than when your hand is, which might squish the paint. That you might want. Is it good? Okay. I just had painted all those areas, so I was just worried. So he's going to dry just so it's easier to manage going back and forth, because loading it and offloading it could smear. In the next thing, we're going to just loosely paint in the values and the kind of the three values, the dark, the middle, and the light of the lavender. And then we'll come in and create kind of like the little texture and everything that makes it feel like a lavender feel. We're also going to create some dramatic light coming down from the sun, which is I really like to do, and I like to exaggerate. There's a thread artist that does this in a way that, and I can never say her name correctly, but she's on Etsy. And I love how she does it. She does it with thread, which is just genius. But we're going to do a pink today, creating wonderful corridors and valleys of light. First, we've got to put in the 3 values of lavender. You ready for that? All right, step 8. Back into my big fat brush. Okay. Now over here in the far off distance, I'm going to take a little of my magenta and my cad red. And I'm going to just start to very loosely paint this color. Now we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Cad red and a little magenta. And come forward and you can kind of see me brush stroking in the direction of the vanishing point. So I will follow the lines to where they would vanish. That's kind of the heat and value of that over here. We'll come back and visit that again, but we want to get that in. Now on our center line, on this side, I say it's going to be more blue, and then we're going to kind of go over purple, and it'll have a hot spot in the center.
All right.
So the first thing is we'll take a little bit of our ultramarine with our Docs purple, just a little bit, and a smidge of white. Smidge of white.
The directionality is important here, huh?
I feel so.
What's that?
Initially, because we're kind of, the lavender is a roundish shape.
Mm-hmm.
So it matters how we get it in. It also has clusters and clumps. But we're right now just trying to say these clusters and clumps have a little bit of this color to them, and we're wanting to rough it in. Now on the Diox purple, we're going to do Diox and a little bit of Quin magenta and some white. Our purple is going to have a little Quin in it. Maybe a little more. We're just starting to brush in the shape of the rose. Pretty loose at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to say these have some dimensionality. Coming over here, a lot more magenta on the left-hand side. And then we'll have the more cool purple on the right hand. And we're just roughing this in. We're going to get into a round brush to get some detailing going for our distance. In just a second, we're just putting in some color basics. Maybe just a little more dark white now on this side.
Little scrubby.
I'm just putting down paint.
Just putting that, but it's you
Just
putting.
putting it down. It's not serious at this stage. I just need to kind of see some colors come in. I'm going to rinse out and I'm going to get a round brush. And I want, or actually I'm going to get a cat's tongue. It's going to give me a little more control. Right? With my distant spaces.
I believe it.
All right. And we've got to kind of create how the rows are, you know, in relationship to the distance. So let's begin with a little bit of our magenta and our dots, my cat's tongue, which is this brush here, and let's I'm going to kind of brush that down. And we're going to just be in this space for a minute. And let's calmly just pull that in.
Just stand in the fields and get them roughed in.
Get them roughed in a little bit. Now I can come in and also sort of go, well, maybe you're more, a little more fine in the distance, and that's okay. You take a little green and a little brown along this horizon edge. A little green and brown. Closer to sun, I can add a little yellow to it. Wipe off my brush. A lot more yellow. Kind of there, and then we'll come back and do like a little orange cast and stuff like that. But we're just talking about some distant horizon.
Yeah. What you thinking?
I think that I gotta think for a second. Sometimes I've got to think, and I will be with you in 2 seconds once I work out an event.
Well, that's all right. I was just didn't know what.
I'm coming here, and I'm trying to kind of capture some of the curve of some of this distant horizon. How that's going to feel. I'm just kind of brushing that out and using a brush that gives me a nice point. What I want to do is have them be nice wide and full here and then vanish as they go far away. And at one point you can even kind of come in and they can vanish with like a little blue. Just sort of interesting. This phthalo blue. Now here, I'm a little bit of the magenta and the dark purple, much more magenta. And I'm just brushing that back at first. And then as I go back, I'm going to get more into purple. And it's going to blend more into that color. Might even get a little phthalo blue kind of brushed in over here. Not so wet.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting cooling of the color. Stand back and look at that for a second. Looking nice. The farther out these get, they're going to be warmer and lighter and have some definite different personalities. Coming in and getting a little highlight going.
That makes it look like a little light streaking in from the distance.
Yeah, we're just pulling in a little of the light coming in. We can exaggerate it at any point. A little more of the magenta and the white here. Catch that highlight on that far side.
Mm-hmm.
We're just thinking about the shape of the rose, how the light hits them, that they kind of are arced over.
Mm. And this is where you probably do that radially kind of spoke for the light.
Yeah. Highlighting it out, grabbing a little light and highlighting it out. Now let's take a picture here.
All right.
Because this is that first part we want to get in. So if we get that in there, then the rest of it can come in pretty quickly. So we're just giving ourselves some information that we need in relationship to the positioning of the rose, the way they vanish in the distance, and the type of lighting that they have. As they get closer to the sun or the horizon line, they're going to do two things. They're going to lighten and they're going to warm. So at the sun, they're going to lighten and warm, and at the horizon line, they're going to lighten and to the distance of the sun, they may warm less, but they're still close to the horizon, so they'll be a little warmer than what's close to you. So it's really interesting to create that sort of shading coming back, and that's what we're going to be doing, is trying to create those rows of shading coming back. Now I'm going to take a little bit of orange into my green. Oh, we got to put up a step. I got to sip some water, hydrate, stretch, do what you got to do. And let's put up some more lighting. I'm going to take some orange, which is my cad red and my cad yellow, and a little green. And I'm going to come here on this far left.
Oh, yeah.
Add a little of that. Just to that spot. There you go. You've got that happening there. That's very nice. And that helps that whole space kind of have an existence that's really rather wonderful and lovely. I think I'm going to enjoy a fan brush. And I'm going to paint from left to right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my magenta and my cad red. And I think I'll step over here left.
Okay.
I'm just going to stipple up and down a little bit of color. This is a Hog Fan number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I chose it is just a nice size. for the areas that I'm painting, right, where I am going to want it to be. I can come in and get a little bit of my purple here. And I can make sure we kind of imply some rose. You know what we're doing?
Yeah.
And I can even come in and get a little white into it. A little magenta. And put a little bit of that purple happening back there, kind of tapping over to the distance. All right, I'm going to step in.
Okay.
And trip.
You okay?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to step in and trip.
We didn't see that part. We just saw the...
Just, woo! I'm going to grab a little of my blue, my phthalo blue, and maybe a little dog's purple, but mostly my phthalo blue. I'm going to come back, step out here again.
Now that's really leaving a streaky...
Come in, and this is with my phthalo blue. Just wiggling, pulling that down and wiggling that back and forth. And wiggle it back and forth. Rinse out. I'm going to come in with, again, my magenta and my dog's purple and some white. Dog's purple and some white. There we go. And step in. Get a little white on here. A little pink. Just trying to get a nice light value. Can be a little more magenta. I'm just making little downward strokes with the brush.
Mm-hmm.
And get over into even where it got into a little of the cad red. A little more cad red.
That's looking like a good field.
Huh?
That's looking like a pretty cool field. The lavender starting to take form.
Bring that down here. Build these rows. Just brushing down initially.
Mm-hmm.
I might start curving the brush strokes a little bit.
What that curve's going to start to
Talks
imply?
about the clump. The clumps of the brush.
Oh.
Just start curving these over. Curving them over. Where things are close enough to us and detail enough, I can start to talk about shape.
Oh, and thank you to everyone who's joining us today, and our heart goes out to everyone who has to be inside here because they're in various states of, you know,
Lockdown?
lockdown or, shelter in place for pandemic stuff. The world's a crazy place, and our hearts are with you guys everywhere.
A little more magenta. Just touching that out. Highlight with magenta. Again, you can curve it. It's real loose at this stage,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. That's what you want. You want a little loosey goosey. And I'm up here. I'm just sort of pulling that down. I might kind of lift this up so that I can. So when
Sure.
these things have lips like this, one of the sometimes like about the other one is that it doesn't block my painting path.
Ah, that little edge there.
Yeah, it's not always my favorite. But the one that doesn't block the painting edge, I can't use a T-square with.
Mm-hmm.
Yet.
Decisions.
Yet.
We'll
I
work.
really still think it might be user error.
We have some challenges we're going to try.
I'm just continuing to, you know. Just talking a little bit about that curve still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little blue here, a little phthalo blue. I'm gonna come step over here.
Okay. These are all just so nice how it comes in.
Now, this is kind of the crazy stage for the rose. But the layers build up into something
Mm-hmm.
quite spectacular when the painting is done. Now, in this stage, I might where the arc goes like that, you kind of want to make sure that your fan brush implies that. Off in the distance, that's a little too big of a stroke. You really don't want the stroke to be that big. I may come back with a very small hog brush to kind of define that out.
Mm-hmm.
Just some highlights with the magenta, the dark purple. And here I can get maybe into more of a more of a that one's gonna grow over this way.
The flowers are in your brain.
The flowers are in my brain, but you guys see what I'm doing.
We
We're
do.
bringing the highlights over here and we're curving the row over. Curving the row over. We're going to come back and put our dark values back in again, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to come in and get a bunch of magenta and purple together. I still want it to be kind of a grape purple. And come over here and once again create that texture. But the rows will happen in the details of the highlights and things.
Ah.
And I'm just giving myself some texture to build from. The highlights are interestingly enough, so the highlights are always going to be coming from the left side,
Mm-hmm.
except that there's a weird shadow cast by the row next to it on this side, so you'll only really see it on the top over here. And that can be a thing that, you know, if you formulaically do it, you might miss. Maybe a little white into this. Small stroke for its distant.
Yeah.
Still coming out a little bit in rows and radiating lines. We don't lose the radiating line.
Yeah.
So stay with us as we go. Now let's take a picture and then we're going to come back and add some more details.
It's looking pretty phenomenal here.
What the honest truth is
I
is
love
that
the
a
sky.
super hot mess stage.
No,
Sky
the
is great.
sky
Flowers are crazy right now, but they're crazy for a reason. And we're going to just build up the layers, and then all of a sudden they're going to be full and beautiful. I think that's what it is. I think John has seen so many. He's like, it's great. It's going great. And it is going great. But if you're new to this and you're wondering, like, especially, here's what I'm saying. You will be very forgiving of my painting on camera. You'll be amazing about it, but you might be really hard on your own painting at home. And you should just know that this is a stage that has a little roughness to it, is a little unresolved. And that's okay. That's what it should be. What you want to be paying attention to is, are you getting the highlights and shadows in the right layers? And are you getting the right texture to start to come into play? Because once it all comes together, it really comes together. Isn't that about right? Well, then I'm going to say you agreed with me.
You can tell them anything you want. Now, here's the thing. Aren't we on a step?
We're going to go on another step.
Do you know what step it is?
No,
I think it's
you
this
know
step,
better than I
this
do.
button. I'm going to push that button and hope that's the right one.
It's going to come together pretty quickly from here.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy the downhill on the painting, because we just hit the top of the hill, and everything is the downhill run down the other side, where it all comes together and is a lot of fun. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, this is just easy for me, I'm going to grab a round brush. This is a hog round, but it's a nice round, and I'm going to come in, and I'll make it brown and black, but it really is black, and I'm going to hopefully have it all kind of on the tip. You do want a round brush that gives you a good tip.
Oh, we're in step 10.
Yep, you did it wrong.
You did it wrong. So here, let's just go and get ready to test step 10. Look at this. So we can do this magic thing where we can go, look, step 10. See? Step 10, if that's where we're at. I may admit, I'm double nine this. You know, not to deny us anything. I had to make sure we did it twice.
Deep dark value for contrast between the lavender rows. This is not like Children of the Corn. He who walks between the rows is just making sure that there's enough value.
They're just smelling the flowers walking behind the rows in this case.
Right. And you just want to make sure that you've got a nice depth.
Community told me too. They're like, you're on step 10.
They always know.
Thank you. I did not know. I was not paying attention to my numbers.
It's not as bad out here, and we'll probably do a lot of the rows out this direction more in blue than black, but it's all right to set them in now. That's pretty good on the far side.
Maybe I was right the first time. Maybe that was step 9.
I don't know what's happening. It's in discussion.
But a step happened. We knew.
Okay. As long as we can find our way back through the painting, I'm cool. We're just making sure that there's some good depth here. You see we're kind of putting that in. All right. We have some great depth in.
"11 may be correct. The discussion continues."
Okay, that's worrisome to me, but I'm trying to just stay focused on.
You're okay.
Along.
I'm just enjoying the chat. Everything is just fine. I was trying to fill the space with funny things that are going on here in chat because I know you get.
Okay, we can have painting times too that are quiet.
You
and
do.
chill.
You get drawn
No,
into.
but that's okay. We can have painting times that are calm and mellow and quiet, and it's just the brush on the canvas where we catch a highlight. That is also okay. Also all right. Okay. Sometimes it feels like we have to fill every moment with noise. But we don't. We don't. Coming along with little highlights. Try to exaggerate that there's little bits there. That's nice. That's very nice. Coming along here. A little purple. A little purple comes from here. We love the purple. Love the purple. Love the purple. Purple on this side.
Oh, lots of people are enjoying the dog quests.
Are they enjoying the dog quest?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to just take this, we're going to fill this row out a little bit into where we have a dark valley, if you guys see.
Ray had a question.
All right, we're going to just fill that in a little more. I would love to answer the question.
Why is there green off in the distance by the sun?
Well, because there's landscape back there.
Oh, it's just like the mountains and field behind the field.
Yeah. Just off in the distance, there's a nice little bit of.
I guess that's probably in the picture. That's the reference.
It's in the picture.
You can look at the reference.
And it's also sort of necessary in our perspective. I'm gonna bring a little cad red out here to the distance. You do want it. You do want it.
It makes that nice contrast line.
It does make that nice contrast line. Now coming along here, let's create a great purple with magenta and a lot of white. I could do it with a fan or I can do it with a round. It's not really, just want some nice little, or maybe I will do it with a fan. I'll do it with the round here and then come in with a fan. Round where I've got to have details.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fan where I can have a little texture. Creating the little implications of the rows that are far, far away. There we go. Getting those in. Okay, let's go back into our fan because our fan is fun. Fans are fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take a little bit of my white and my purple and pink. And I'm going to come here and I think I'm going to have to step a little left on.
All right.
I'm going to tap up. Pepper. Right. Tap up. At first. Just at first. I'm going to come in and get a little more. Fun. Get a little more magenta into our purple mix when we're going up. Trying to exaggerate this curve over. Spend some time in it. You can have some fun with it. Okay. We've got that there. Now, get your phthalo blue and a little titanium white. Not too much. We're using this blue to talk about the shadow. We could use ultramarine as well, but there's such a strong warm value to the phthalo blue that I think it makes a more dramatic painting, especially when you bring the oranges through.
Mm.
I'm going to just definitely pull that fan down here. You see that going?
I do.
All right. Definitely pulling it down here. Then I'm going to get into my purple and white. Come back. Now, in this, you can even, come in with some darker purple and white. And you can even kind of
Oh, yeah. Makes a nice little.
find a couple little zones. In an area. Looking super good. Okay, I'm going to take a little of my green and my brown and my cad yellow. And step right. Touch a couple places with it. A couple. These are little spots in your lavender. Maybe a little green peeking in. A little green peeks in. Very, very light. Step over. We're getting little highlights on top.
See those really pop on the.
Get a little bit of this. Gentle, 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 gentle. So we want to make the flowers kind of bloom up into our rose, but we need to leave the shadow of the rose that we have. All right. That is the right half. Now we're going to do the center this. Let's call this a step, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that. Or actually, yeah, no, because I think it's a lot to take in. So let's photograph a step here.
Whoops. There we
Um,
go.
it'll all come together at the end when the orange and yellow amazing drama corridor of light comes down the lavender. You're going to be like, what? And this is to be one of your favorite paintings ever. It just takes a few layers. And, but it's one of those fun ones where if you understand where the highlights are and where the rows are vanishing and how many layers it takes, it will come together. It will weave together a beautiful painting that you can hang on your wall today. How are you guys feeling? Now, if you had any questions about this painting, remember you can go into the YouTube story on your mobile app and ask me a question on my story, and then I'm going to answer it in video. And I do that. I'm posting the question, ask me anything on Saturdays, and it ages out every 7 days. So that gives me like a week to answer stuff. So I try to get in there every day now and answer because I want to encourage YouTube. So here's in my dream world, in the Stories app on YouTube, my best thing would be not only could you ask me a question, but you could post a picture. So I'm hoping, or maybe even a video response or something. I don't know where YouTube is going to go with this, but it feels like it could be heading that direction. And if it is, I'm into it because that would be great as a teacher. I'm excited about it. I'm going to encourage this behavior on YouTube's end in any way. Plus, it gives us a good dialogue back and forth. All right, let's throw up a step and know what step it is.
I am on the queue.
Okay.
Because we've not done 11 yet.
Okay, that works for me. We're going to need a clean water pretty soon. Maybe next step we'll do clean water.
Okay.
So across here, this is sort of an interesting thing, and I'm going to lift this up a bit so that I've got a little lip here.
All right.
And we're going to really sort of shade this and work this. This is our big drama area. And we've got kind of blue going in both sides. It's sort of fascinating what's happening here. So first, let's get into our blue, which is our white and phthalo blue. Over here on this edge, it's not too deep. It's definitely present, but it's not as deep. Here, I definitely see a lot more of that blue.
So Mama Joe is asking, where are the stories? You have to be on a mobile device, don't you?
You have to be on a mobile device, and you go to my channel and you click my face. You know how it has my face on my channel?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on your phone, you click my face, it will open up the story. If you watch YouTube from your phone. The only way to access it that I have been able to find.
So that's if you're on your desktop, that's why you may not have seen them.
Yeah, it would be totally where those were. And wow, everything I'm saying makes no sense. And it's not on iPad either. I checked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a little dox and a little of my Quin Magenta here together. And we're going to make sure that we have a little distance. Right. Whoa.
You okay?
No, it's just the mat is more
Oh.
under the shelf than under my standing
feet.
area. And
Right
I
there.
did not know it and I stepped off of it.
I see that. Everyone is just wowing.
Just a fun painting to do. Purple is, I know, purple people. I'm a purple person. I always have been. Purple. Bringing a little purple back this way, coming in with my dogs and a little white. And a little shadow. A couple places with your dogs, purple. It really helps. And you can come up on your shaded side a bit too. Heavier on it. Rinse, 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 rinse. Then we're going to come through with that little bit of that green we had earlier. Maybe deeper in the green. Have fun with this. This is a fun one to do.
That's very looking.
Get back into a very, very light color for the top of the lavender. Here I'm going to go more into my Quin Magenta for that. Here we go. Much lighter even. We got to get a good value contrast going.
That's really cool.
There we go. As we get closer, we can piece those out. We can have some magentas in there, maybe a little bit stronger. I like to have the handle down because it makes the brush frown, which helps with the curving. If you're wondering why I do that, that's why. I'll put a bright highlight kind of up here. I'm going to step back and give that a look. Feel like it needs a little more purple. A little white got into the brush, so I've got to kind of take that out because you don't want that white there.
Yeah.
The highlight you're not interested in having. We'll look again.
You have to step back and look for that balance, huh?
Yeah, sometimes you really do. Sometimes you really want to step back and look at how it's balanced. I'm going to come back with a little of, even in my shadow color where it's just, there's a little bit of a highlight on that. So that it's not so singular dimensional, where we do see it a little more.
I really like those little field way that the light has been created on them. The curvature of that light really is cool.
Important stuff. Maybe a slightly darker, much darker. Get that sense of things. All right, so now we've got rows and rows.
Rows and rows.
This side of the canvas, which is, we've got a little bit of shadow here into these bushes, but we've also got, I'm going to take a little bit of my purple here as well. Make sure that there's a kind of a full space. So purple, purple.
Oh, Jennifer says, I can see the YouTube stories, but where do I type my question?
It has a little thing where you have a little question down. If you look down the bottom of like the little line thing, will pop up at the bottom of the screen, and then you can ask a question there.
Okay.
And then you type it in. It doesn't let you do a video response yet, and then I can do.
Then you can do it.
Then I can do. And they have some articles on it that YouTube has. Google has. If ever you're having any problems with a Google product, chances are there is an article somewhere that covers what you're going through.
Mm-hmm. This is where this is going to just come together.
It is. I'm alternating between the blue and purple. We're just creating the shadows on the outer edges of the road. And put out some more purple. When we get done with this, we'll only have one thing left to do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Only one thing?
Only one thing.
What's
It's
the
kind
one
of
thing?
exciting. Just the highlights of the sun coming down.
Oh.
Pretty nice. Come here with some purple as well. Just make sure that I've got a little blue and white again. Bring that back while I get a chance to think about it.
Yeah. The last of the field coming in.
Last of the field coming in. I take a little of my blue and white up here and kind of towards the back here, maybe. Exaggerate some of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of really fun. I'm going to make sure that what I don't have is a hidden little plop of white. If I loosely mix at this stage, then I get these weird little whites. And if you get weird little unexpected whites, then you lose your value.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you'll see me fighting a loose mix on this fan brush method. Because I want to be able to control some of the value
That makes sense.
that I'm seeing. Just adding a light, starting to highlight right along here. Nice little clumps of lavender. The kind for perfume.
Mm-hmm.
I go on the edge of the brush where it's got to go away in a distance, and I'm I'm trying to get a little shape and shadow for the distance. And up close, I let it kind of bring out the clumps. Right here, I wouldn't want to have like a white spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you see me doing, is trying to make sure. What I do have comes from something kind of uniform. Make a very light color here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I work with a limited palette, right?
What does that mean?
That means I use the same colors. I have 11 colors that I use all year. So my students, as of 2021, don't have to go out and buy a ton of different colors.
So that just means you just don't open up a new
A new color every
any...
time I'm doing something. There are 1,000 purple pigments. There are 1,000 magenta pigments. Right? You might really enjoy putting Quinn Reds into this mix. We are working from our little palette in our art journey. Because it really helps us, familiarize ourselves with value and color mixing. A little on the corner of the brush, just trying to make sure that we...
Just getting those highlights in there.
Yeah, take that time and get some highlights in there. Good idea to rinse out every once in a while. And we're going to go through and do this all through here.
Same thing on the other side there?
Same thing. Same. I can also take my darkest purple here at the base.
Yeah.
And exaggerate some of these little shadows as well. Can use the dark purple almost like a black, which is sort of fun. Now here we might keep these highlights like a little bit to the top,
Yeah.
not too down deep.
This is really great. I'm with Pamela. This is just amazing.
It's fun to do too.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing is like there is a certain relaxing space. A lot of ways to do this. There's the kind of daily painter method of it where you just values, right? Which is super fun and beautiful. There is, you know, abstract, which is also really fun to do. You know, stuff lends itself to abstract very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Lavender fields, all done with a palette knife. Fun, fun, fun. And, you know, this fan brush stuff. Fun, fun, fun.
Which one was that you put out?
I put out quinacridone magenta.
Oh, okay.
A very good magenta.
If you would
Maybe
like them.
I will load it on my brush heavier. Because it gives me a nice kind of like, ooh. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Get into a purple.
Purple.
Check it every once in a while. You stand back from it.
Gotta just take a step back and go, is this
Give
what
it a
I
look.
was looking for?
You just every once in a while got to give it a look. I might wipe off. Might load into my very light reflection. Again, if you notice that your brush has like unexpected pops of white, you just go back in and you're like, no, 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 no.
That's okay. Just
Yeah, you just tell it no. Okay to tell your brush no.
wow. It's really coming out nice.
It has its little moments. Just making sure that our little radials
Mm-hmm.
are happening. I can take a little of my green here, brown, and I can also come on the underside here. Because there just is a little more of it.
Just a little bit more there.
Yeah, from this viewpoint. And so you can play with that. Now, I need a clean cup of water, and we're going to do the last and most spectacular finishing touches.
Yeah.
Actually, I can do one other little finishing touch. I'll take a little green and brown on here because I already had the mix. Make sure that some of that isn't smooth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There you go. That's got a bit of a little tree line to it. And that far off. Now, let's take a step and get a fresh cup of water.
We take a step.
Fresh cup of water.
Look at that.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's where we're at. We found our light source. We're lighting our lavender rose. We're seeing them kind of as tubes, which they kind of are. And now we're going to come through. We're going to do some color. So in the color wheel, there is, you've heard of contrasting colors. We know that purple's contrast is yellow because it's at opposite ends of the color wheel. However, if I kind of split that and I go into oranges and yellows, I can create drama across purple, which is why we sometimes like a sunset so much, because there's this yellow and orange and purple that go together, and then our little hearts get super excited. So we're going to do that across our field of lavender as well. So as if the sun is setting, can you grab the water, babe? As if the sun, I'm so sorry. It's okay. I'm trying to put out more water because it's like crazy when it's going to run around getting water. We're actually going to put in a water system here with a reclamation, a crash solid, so that the plastics are pulled out of the water. That's really close to my studio, so I can clean off a little bit easier. Anything you can do in your setup and cleanup that makes your painting time easier is time well spent in your life, because it's really easy to get kind of off your painting kit with just a few obstacles. So things that you can remove from your painting space as obstacles, messes, brush cleanup, all that, making that less problematic, resetting your studio after a painting session so the next time that you sit down, it's ready for you. These things can make your painting time much easier.
Are you ready?
I need to put tips together.
You ready?
I am. All right, step 12. This is this feels like a 12-step wonderful painting. We're going to come through here.
Where are we going?
I'm going to go into my cad yellow and my cad red. And we're going to make some orange. And we're going to come down here. Maybe I'm going to come a little to the side with a little more of the orange over here. And then come through here. And this isn't going to be that different from how we do water sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut some of the rose with a little of this. This is maybe a little more cad. Oh, no.
What's wrong?
I got blue into my brushwork.
Oh, no.
And I don't want it. So I want to be a little more orange, a little more cad red at first, and I'll come back with a lighter. So where you have done highlights, it can help you see where you might hit with a little bit of orange.
Oh, there you are.
Starting with a little more, the orange is a little more to the cad red, but you guys can see what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to it won't be as strong maybe over here. It'll be present. And as we come over here, maybe a little more. See how the light is painting the
Mm-hmm.
lavender? I'm going to wipe my brush, not rinse. And I'm going to put a lot more yellow into my mix, creating a bright orange. A step left again, John.
All right.
And we're going to come down. Here I might curve that yellow kind of into the here I might curve that yellow kind of into the lavender.
Okay.
If I get too bright in an area, I can always come back with like a slightly darker orange and kind of mellow it. A step center. So it's less and less as it goes towards the left side.
Mm-hmm.
More where it's directly under our sunset. And because it's purple and yellows and oranges, it's just so dramatic. Look at that.
It's pretty amazing.
And it just feels like the lavender's almost on fire, doesn't it?
No.
I think that's it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think
think
that's
we
pretty
have,
fantastic.
Look at that. We've got our little lavender all warmed with light. We've painted a whole field of it in a 16 by 20, giving it a really terrific little sunset to go over it. I say we come in here
Sign it?
and give it a signature.
I think that seems pretty reasonable.
All right. Little Sherpa in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go. So I hope this one was a lot of fun for you. Check out the lavender playlist if you've enjoyed it. I have all the different types of lavender we've discussed there. Chairs and lavenders and girls and holly hobby bonnets and lavender and abstract lavender, small canvas lavender, bigger than this canvas
You've
lavender.
done lavender all over.
And I will probably do it again. To be real honest,
You like
I
the
got
lavender.
Q-tip lavender. I will do it again. I like it. It's a cool flower. It's a cool subject. It introduces you guys to some neat concepts. I'm sure this will not be the last time we see lavender. In what construct will we see it? I don't know. Why don't you tell me in the comments? What other ways should we paint lavender? I hope to see you guys on Wednesday over at the watercolor channel. We will try to get another tip out this week, next week, for you guys. So you can learn something, a concept or an idea based on the poll that we had on the community tab. You guys gave me some great ideas, some great stuff. The Big Art Quest, which is almost a year-long journey about a subject or topic, is about dogs this year, and we just started it. A little late, but we got there. And we had a black lab, and our first tip on black fur, not the last. Definitely also come weigh in and tell us about that. I want to see your paintings. If you post on Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook, definitely let me know. You can come share it in our Facebook group. Safe place to share your Art Sherpa tutorials all week. We're very kind over there. And speaking of, be kind to yourself. In this art journey, remember what I said about cortisol not being good for us? That only works if we're not berating ourselves for our paintings. Remember, the painting is just supposed to feel good. The act of painting is just supposed to be enjoyable and uplifting and relaxing. So that only works if you pay attention or are mindful of the dialogue you're having about the worth of your art. Every painting is valid and every artist is valid, and you and your art are worth all respect and all kindness. So give that to yourself first. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.